Are you guys tired of getting your work surface dirty or resin getting everywhere if you have a resin machine? Well, today we're putting a bunch of silicone mats to the test to let you guys know what comes out on top. Okay, so I've got cyanoacrylate here, right here, and right here, which is super glue. And this is quick set epoxy, which I just poured on here, and I'm mixing it up. So now I'm going to let these dry. I'm going to spread the cyanoacrylate out a little bit more. So we've got 3 different mats. This is electronic style silicone mat, and you can see there's burn marks on here from me blowing boards up and other stuff. There's another one on my scope right here. I've had these for probably about 3 or 4 years, and you can see they're still in great shape. This is the WhamBam slat mat, and I actually scraped the raised logo off because I was tired of bumping into it, but I filled it back in with marker so you guys can see. This is the WhamBam mat. And then this is an Amazon Basics pet silicone food mat. Now I do have a 4th mat, but it's currently under my resin printers, and I'll talk about that one as well. So I've spilled the same stuff on that other one, and everything came out fine. So I have these 3 that are ones that float around my office. I'm also going to put some resin on each of them. I got some Monoprice Rapid UV resin, so I'm going to shake this up, put a little dollop in each spot, and then put my UV curing chamber over these to get the resin cured. And the goal is to see if there's any difference in the performance of these mats in terms of getting epoxy, super glue, and resin on them. Okay, so one more thing I'm going to throw into the mix here is some RTV high temp silicone gasket. I'm going to see if any of these mats stand up to this or if this is going to bond, because this is silicone. So it's a similar type of silicone material that these mats are made out of. This is just a very high temp one. So I'm going to put a little dollop of each on here. So let's add some RTV to the mix. I'm going to put a little dot here on each of them, and then spread it around. So this has been on here overnight, and the resin is about as cured as it's going to get. And since it looks like some of this is it's still kind of tacky, so I'm going to put my gloves on. Alright, so I have all the different substances. We have the CA glue, or cyanoacrylate, aka super glue, RTV silicone, some resin. As you can see, it is hard, but still kind of tacky. This is why you wash your resin prints, because you'll still have like this film that's over it. We have epoxy, which is plenty hard. This is hard. Here, I'll just tap all these. So let's see how all these reacted to having these materials on here. And I'm also going to check and see if there's any signs of these residues coming through. This one doesn't show any signs. Oh, look at that, that came right off. This one doesn't either. And if you look here, there's kind of like a haze on my desk here, which means that some of the CA glue permeated through. Let's see if that wipes off my desk. I'm not surprised that this one permeated through here, because this is the thinnest, I believe, of all the mats, and we're going to measure these in a little bit. Isopropyl alcohol is what we're going to use to clean these off. Let's see if that comes off my desk or if I'm going to have a stain here. No, that cleaned up. Might be a slight haze, but... So this did not prevent CA from going through. Let's see how this reacts to CA being removed from it. Little tiny bits of the blue coming off with it. I'm just going to scrape the rest of this off. So you can see here, all the CA glue came off of the Amazon Basics mat, but it did discolor it. Let's see how the epoxy is. Epoxy's still kind of tacky in certain spots, but you see here, it is cured. Different substances, we have the CA. Epoxy didn't do anything to the Amazon mat. Wipe that off and see. Yeah, no damage from two-part epoxy. Let's see how the RTV silicone did. RTV doesn't seem to want to come off. Alright, we'll come back to that. Let's see how the resin did. This is still not fully cured, as you can see here, but doesn't appear to be any damage to the mat from the resin. So we'll go ahead and thoroughly clean all this off when we're done. Now let's see if I can get this off of here, or if it's bonded. Pretty well stuck to the mat here. Yeah, so the RTV silicone is completely stuck to the Amazon mat. It will not come off. So let's try the little electronic style mat. Obviously the resin came off. Let's see if this stained at all. Nope, doesn't look like it's affected at all. What about the CA glue? CA glue stuck to this mat. It will not come off. See here, it's bonded. What about the epoxy? Epoxy comes right off with no issue. No damage from the epoxy, but this CA glue is completely fused to this mat. Let's see what the RTV did. Yeah, the RTV is stuck to this. Now for the third mat, which is the slap mat, see how this did. Resin doesn't seem to phase it, just like the other two. RTV is fused to the slap mat. What about epoxy? Came off. All right, let's see how the super glue does. Oh, pieces of the mat are coming off on this one. See a little bit of orange on there. But I'm able to get it off, it seems. It definitely was not, there's pieces coming off with it. So it did bond to this. Yeah, this part is pretty well stuck on here. I can't actually get it off. I'm trying scraping it. It is taking part of the mat with it. What about the RTV? Let's be a little more aggressive with it. It's not scraping off, but I am shaving it off. So there's that. Yeah, you can tell it's bonded. All right, let's take some measurements. First up is the Amazon Basics one, and we've got a lip size of about 12 millimeters. So that's how far this lip extends out. And in terms of height, we're just under 6. Now, for the thickness of the mat, the Amazon mat is about 1.5 millimeters thick. And you can see here, it's a little more floppy. But this is a very large mat. The other mat I have, which is not in this video, that I did all the tests on except for the RTV silicone, which is the Viva Glory that's currently sitting under my 2 resin printers. That passed even the super glue test and had about the same amount of discoloration on it as the Amazon Basics one, which you can see in the corner right here. Next up is our little electronics silicone mat. This one, if you notice, and this is why I like this one, is it's got all these little cutouts here for when you're working on your parts or projects to put little ICs and other surface mount components and screws and other stuff. It's even got integrated rulers in here for measuring. I do really like these little mats. There's actually one on the scope, which is right there. So let's see how thick this is. Got about a 5 millimeter lip here that is about 3.45 tall. Now let's see how thick the actual mat is. So this one is just a little over 2. Let's just call it 2. And you can see this one's not as floppy as the Amazon because it's 0.5 millimeter thicker. And last up is the WhamBam. Slat mat. You can see here, I just washed these all off. That's why they're wet. The CA glue did discolor this a little. It's hard to see because of the color they chose. And there's little chunks of this missing from the CA glue. So it did slightly worse than the Amazon mat, but this one and the other one, even though there is some damage to the mat, or in the case of the blue one, the electronics one, it's still stuck on there. It did not let any vapors through. I'm gonna right around 8 millimeters for the width of this lip, and for the height, we're at like 3.89, so let's call it 3.9. And we're right at about 2.4 for the actual thickness of this mat. So, and that doesn't surprise me because this feels a little bit thicker than the blue one. So there we go, there's our measurements. You can see that these all did pretty well. And let's move into the wrap up and see what my thoughts are on these mats. And all the other chemicals that were on here, the resin and the epoxy, came off of this with no problem. So what does this mean for these mats? Well, it means that if you're using it for resin, any of these mats are going to work. They all performed identically. The resin didn't permeate or get stuck to any of them. So in terms of performance of those, get whatever you want in terms of what your size requirements are. One thing I do like about the Viva Glory one and the Amazon one is that they're huge. They're 24 by 16 inches, and it's big enough for me to put 2 resin machines on and contain any mess that's around them. So there's enough space in front and the sides of the machines to contain any spills. In terms of a work mat, again, any of these are good work mats. They're great for doing soldering on. I mix epoxy on them. I super glue things. The difference is I usually wipe off any of these chemicals that get on these mats right away so they don't have a chance to cure. But as you can see, the super glue can bond to these mats quite easily, and some of these had an easier time getting the super glue off of it once it cured, and others it stuck to, like the blue one here. If you're doing any sort of soldering or projects, any of these are going to work for you. If the little $7 blue mat here is what you need in terms of size and you're doing soldering, I can highly recommend this one because I really like all these cutouts for surface mount parts or screws or other little components. This is nice for keeping all your parts in one place. All these mats have some sort of lip on them. If you're looking for something that's more full coverage, where you can cover your entire work surface and still have plenty of room around where you're working, then the Viva Glory or the Amazon are going to be my pick. Now let's talk about the pricing and sizing of this mat. This mat is either $19 shipped from China and you're waiting a month to get it, or $29 shipped from UPS through their expedited postage, which means that's $29. This mat is bigger than the $7 Blue Electronics one, but it's way smaller than the $13 to $15 Amazon one and the Viva Glory one, which are 24 by 16. Now, in terms of comparing this to something that's a little bit more sizable, you can get the Viva Glory and the Amazon silicone mats for under $11, and that's with Prime shipping as well. So until this comes down in cost, I can't say go out and buy this because this doesn't perform any better than the lower cost options. I also don't like the fact that I wasn't able to get a straight answer out of Peter in terms of what first grade silicone meant, and was just basically told that it's pure silicone. I'm pretty sure these other mats are pure silicone as well, and the fact that they're using this first grade silicone term in their advertising when I can't find anything in actual documentation and scientific papers on what grades of silicone are, tells me that it's just a marketing term to try to command a higher price for this. And again, this is a nice mat, but if I'm being real with you guys, there's other alternatives out there that do the same thing and they're about half the cost, or they're cheaper and they're almost twice the size. So that's gonna wrap this video up. If you guys don't already have a silicone work surface, I highly recommend getting one. It's great for if you're soldering, you're gluing things, you're mixing epoxy. They're really nice to have on your surfaces to make sure that they don't get damaged. As we saw from all the tests here, the only one I have a concern with in terms of leaving stuff on it overnight is the Amazon Basics one. But if you do spill super glue on it and you wipe it off right away, it's not going to have time to actually go through the silicone mat and then leave some sort of haze on the work surface beneath it. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, and as always, happy printing.